of Jersey, and I feel alive.
All right. Hi.
Hiya.
Let's do it. Let's do a podcast. It's 4 p.m., so we should be more animated than our usual Sunday night selves.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, it's the Christmas season. I should almost put a Santa hat on people.
Getting into the Christmas spirit and getting ready to watch Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer for what is it, the 20th something
Wait,
time?
that's a movie?
Oh yeah. Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer was turned into a movie a while ago.
When's a while ago? Like, is it early 2000s Christmas movie or?
It is early 2000s. It was
No.
you know about the thing that there has to be a certain percentage of cartoons on Canadian TV networks that are made in Canada.
I
which
guess I'm
ends up-
familiar.
Well, it produces a lot of garbage TV shows and movies, one of which is the direct to TV adaptation of the song Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, which does incorporate power of attorney into the plot.
It's an hour and a half long movie. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Oh, fuck.
Whenever it comes on, I'm mesmerized by it. I can't stop watching until it's over, and afterwards I feel like I'm in a stupor. I'm
Is that like a
disoriented and
Christmas
totally-
Day tradition?
Hmm?
It's like a Christmas Day tradition.
It's like a whenever tradition. If it comes
Oh.
on like the 13th, I'll just watch it.
Yeah, not much of a Christmas episode because this will be released on the 26th, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so we started last week with Sea Level Rise 1. We talked about why it happened. Now we're going to talk about what to do about it.
Yep.
And to go off on a quick tangent, my favorite Christmas movie is hands down Polar Express.
It's a pretty good one.
Dude, absolute amazing. It's a like the fucking magic train. How cool can you get there? And then it's probably the most realistic, relatively speaking, North Pole.
I would say
Because
For
like all the
me-
other fucking North Poles are like maybe one house and like 18 elves, but this one no, it's like a whole
Yeah.
fucking city. And then they actually show like he has a billion presents, and they go down that cool ass slide.
probably my genuinely most favorite Christmas movie because I'm very ho hum about Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. I just happen to have watched it a lot of times. Probably gonna be Home Alone 1 and 2.
A Home
Very
Alone,
iconic.
Home Alone 1 is iconic. Home Alone 2 is fun. It's not as iconic. It's
You gotta
kind of
watch them both.
it's the
You gotta
same
get that
thing.
down the hall and to the left in there.
It's the same thing in my mind as the Die Hard movies. The first one, absolute classic Christmas movie, amazing. Second one, I don't know. It's a good action movie, but it's not the same Christmas classic.
Frankly, I believe
And then it went off the rails.
the only
There's a
reason
Die
Hard
Hard
is
3.
the only reason Die Hard is a Christmas movie is because Christian Bale says it isn't.
The only reason it's a Christmas movie is because it takes place on Christmas. No, he gets redemption with his estranged wife. It's the meaning of Christmas.
It's family.
It's family. Just be quiet, haters. All right. So speaking of Christmas, the news is don't get yourself killed.
Yeah.
Don't go to a place that has COVID where you don't have COVID. Don't go to a place that if you have COVID, don't go to a place that doesn't have COVID. This is why we are in the war on COVID.
We're locking down again, yeah.
We are
Um,
here. It is
I'm
like
getting my emails from colleges have slowly shifted to, hey guys, we haven't locked down.
I'm getting that feeling that I got in March 2020.
Oh yeah, the one where it's like, are we really sure this is going to be 2 weeks and nothing else?
No, it's that we were heading into spring break and we were like, oh, it's gonna blow over, we'll be after spring break. And with the benefit of hindsight, I'm kind of in the knowledge right now that there is very little chance that we go back to school on January 7th.
I think it's possible, but people don't wear their masks enough, at least where we go, to
Yeah.
understand kind of the ramifications of going away again.
Oh, speaking of which, someone got arrested at the school board meeting last night.
Really?
Okay, so there's this guy. His name is Mr. C, and he doesn't even live in the district, but
Oh.
he showed up to every school board meeting after since like August, and he's like rambled like this guy might have a mental illness or something, but he came like they set up some rules before after a bunch of shit that happened, which was like you can't make any disparaging comments towards anyone in the school board. And this guy comes up and he's like says and he calls like our superintendent like a puppet bobblehead and Emperor Pritzker is making all these things and then he reaches into his bag and then Waterman gets up because like
Oh.
everyone thought he was gonna like get a gun or something, but he pulls out a bobblehead and he's like, just in case you don't know what a bobblehead is. And then the superintendent
Oh.
literally gets up, takes his coat off, and like, oh fuck, is he gonna throw hands with this guy? And he says, if you don't leave the auditorium in 10 seconds, you'll be in violation of trespassing. And the entire audience erupts in applause.
I honestly think he might not be very mentally well.
And then like the camera zooms in like to the opposite corner and you can just hear the police officer in there like dragging this guy out. He's like yelling and saying, "You're hurting me." It's like, holy fuck, you got arrested at a school board meeting for a district that you don't even live in.
I can't wait to read the minutes.
Dude, the minutes are gonna be so funny. Oh my god. There's been a lot of crackhead parents at our school district. Like, because the thing is, the school's performance is sliding. The top 50% of our school probably isn't affected that much, but the bottom 50% is really sliding because of COVID and everything.
Oh yeah,
And-
low income brackets are the most affected by the
Yeah.
education changes.
And then, so that's causing LT's rank to slide, which causes property values to slide. And if you tell anyone, any parent who lives in this district that their property values are going to go down, they will raise hell.
Oh yeah.
If you know that, if you know this district, you know that people will lose their shit about property values.
we love our gentrified suburbs that literally do not care about anything other than making more equity for their gentrified children.
See, we really can't. We're not really outing our where we live at our school district because that could be like anywhere in Chicagoland.
This is just every suburb in the U.S.
Yeah, you know, you're right. See, we got Mr. Senator Manchin here.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about
One
him.
and only.
We'll talk about him in due time. He's basically killed the Build Back Better bill. He basically just said, "Make it again," and I might vote for it. That was a quote. That was a quote. He said, "Make it again," like basically tear it down and build it up again, and I might vote for it. I'm like, well, go fuck yourself, Mr.
What?
Manchin. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his approval rating's like in West Virginia, but I mean,
Oh, West Virginia. Yeah, I
When
always
you-
forget.
when you're but when you're a senator or a representative, you're not just accountable to your state is the thing, and that's kind of where Mr. Manchin's messing up. Who signed
Yeah.
him as a Democrat? That's all I want to know. But anyway, talk about sea level rise. So how are poor cities trying to get around the problem of being too low?
Yep.
What's the deal? Why are there so many low-lying East Coast cities? Why have they all done this to themselves?
It's infrastructure. Everything's infrastructure.
It's
And in their
terrible.
case, it's very old, crumbly infrastructure.
Yeah, just weld a gusset plate onto a big old crack in an I-beam. It's fine. It'll hold for another
Oh,
10
yeah,
years.
don't worry about it. We'll get back to it when we build the bridge again,
Then you can
and they
blame
never get back to it, and the bridge crumbles.
then you can blame the next highest ranking inspector.
Just wait until the leading party is in the opposition, and
Yeah.
then just blame them for everything.
Oh, easy money. Okay, so seawalls. I actually went to this seawall. It's
Oh,
not
really?
very exciting. It's on the California coast. I just
Oh, okay.
recognize this beach. Yeah, they're passive and they're cheap. It's basically just a big concrete wall that either holds in land from eroding or it protects you from a storm surge. So in a storm surge, the wind pushes on the water such that the elevation of the ocean is locally raised. So that's what a sea level gets around. So you can close this gate when there's a storm. And then in this case, it's holding back this easily erodible wall of sand, but it's not really doing much to prevent direct sea level
Yeah.
rise. That's why
If
it's
the
cheap.
tide level went above that, then all that sand is going away.
Oh yeah. So then we got, this is the most fucked picture of New Orleans. This is a cross section of New Orleans of how much of it is
Ooh.
below sea level.
It looks like what's the Denmark? Denmark is their average height is I think like -5 or -10
Oh,
feet.
like look at that. Look, like this is sea level. Most of the city is under sea level.
It's like a giant bowl.
Yeah, so there's like Pontchartrain, and then there's the Mississippi Riverbank, so it's kind of a cross section of that. Oh, New Orleans is so low lying. So because of that, it's a bowl. Water's gonna go here. So you need to pump it all out. And that's super energy intensive. And it can be overwhelmed with more than 1 inch of rain for the first hour and zero point 0.5 inches every hour after that.
That's a light
And
rainfall.
when during Hurricane Ida you got about 10 inches of rain in 4 hours, um, it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of flooded all of New Orleans, and then
1 inch of rain, mind you, it's not like, oh, this is the 10-year or the 50 or the 100-year
this is
rainstorm
the
that we don't need
year
to worry about.
rainstorm.
That's yearly. That's
That's a
entirely heard
6 month
of.
rainstorm, and like it's like they have backup generators, but these things require massive amounts of power. If you lose power, you're losing most of your pumping capacity. And
Yeah.
we're going to kind of get into this later in the episode. It's going to become more and more clear that they're building themselves into a corner. They're digging a hole,
Mhm.
and it's not easy, and it's often not even possible to say, well, just tear down the city and build it 10 miles away on higher ground.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You've
Yeah.
invested so much in all the infrastructure of the city that usually your only choice is to keep working against something as consequential as the ocean.
Yeah. It's tough. You can't sell off the oceanfront property, but you also really can't gain any money investing it.
Mhm.
So people just buy up oceanfront property and are stuck with it because it's going to be ocean property
Oh
in
yeah.
10 or 20 years.
Oceanfront property is kind of scary to me.
It's just weird.
It's like I'm terrified of the deep ocean. I just want to point that out. Big
Thalassophobia.
big lakes I'm fine with. Even I can live on the coast. That's no problem to me. But if you have me on the beach, that's a problem. Just
Yeah.
being on the beach and just especially on the west coast, knowing there's like maybe 10,000 miles of just water there is just terrifying. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's the fear of the unknown, but ocean flavored.
Big ocean. Okay, yeah, pumps, they're really impractical, but some places do make it work. And then Tokyo just has so much shit going on. Anything that's purple is below sea level. So most of the most developed
Wow.
parts of Tokyo are below sea level. And they get a lot of rain and they get typhoons. So the city of Tokyo said, you know what, fuck it. We're not gonna pick up and build in the mountains. We're gonna go and oh, I didn't know that Mount Fuji is like kind of right next to Tokyo.
Oh yeah, if in a lot of photos of Tokyo, it's just in the background.
I always imagined it being like way out in the boonies, like it was like a few hour drive
It
or
might be.
bullet train. No. That seems like it's just across town. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, Tokyo's like really, really big.
Yeah, it's a giant city. It might be the biggest city actually.
It's probably the biggest city is probably the Pearl River Delta, but that's kind of combined cities. I think the Tokyo metro area just might be the biggest.
Hmm.
Anyway, so what you have is they get a ton of rain, so the rivers come in and they drain into these big ass tanks. And then this is the main tank, and then it gets pumped out into the ocean. This one's a little bit more practical, and this one actually works because Tokyo designed it such that even with off the rails climate change, it would still be totally fine. So this is one of the examples where pumps in underground canals actually work. It's if the engineers built in some type of leeway. But what
Yeah.
New Orleans and a lot of other East Coast cities are dealing with is they might pour $1 billion into a project that'll be outdated in 10 years.
Yeah. It's all about not just not just really relieving yourself now, but spending extra money to relieve yourself in the future so you don't have to do it again.
Yeah, the calculus is such that the 50-year storm, the 100-year storm, the 10,000-year storm is changing continuously.
Yeah.
So there's not really this is just this is so like big. And this is what it looks like from where the camera is.
You can see people oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like right like that's a person right there.
Just
Oh,
incredibly large tunnel system.
China
Really.
would love to get at this concrete here.
Oh yeah.
China loves its concrete. So then there's
The Three Gorges Dam is built out of sunflower seeds and ramen bricks.
that's what it's built on. It's made out of solid concrete. It's just the problem it's built on like gypsum or something.
Ugh.
It's not gypsum, but it's pretty bad. So then there's landfill. I just included this because I thought it was really funny to see Facebook's campus flood in 10 years. So yeah, so just to kind of orient you, this is South Bay. San Jose is kind of down here. Stanford's campus is like right here. And there's Facebook and Google somewhere over here too. But yep. I just
Pretty
like to
fun.
watch Facebook get flooded. It's very nice. So the city of San Francisco, it's not just a big square naturally. Everything highlighted in green used to be ocean.
Hmm.
So that's most of the financial district, pretty much all of the Mission District. And then what's this, Soma, I think. But anyway, when this is being built, probably 100 or so years ago, the city of San Francisco was like, we can make it 5 whole feet higher. But then they didn't. So they literally could have skirted the entire problem of sea level rise for San Francisco if they would have just said, yeah, let's do it.
I don't think they expected it to be an issue at that time.
Yeah, they didn't. But now there's things on top of there. There's people, there's buildings, there's lives and jobs. So you can't really landfill's really only effective in urban planning.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really retroactively landfill an area.
Nothing more than just a shame that they didn't
And this
have
is
the
to
foresight
say
to consider it.
landfill as in just like sand and dirt, not like
Oh yeah.
garbage. This is just filling in the land, like the literal definition.
Yep.
So then there's impractical damming. So starting over here, there's a ton of cities in the Mediterranean Sea. You got everything in Spain, Italy, IMF land, then Israel. There's a crackpot plan to dam the Strait of Gibraltar, the inlet,
That will not work.
which is all well and good, except the Strait of Gibraltar is about 3,000 feet deep.
First of all, the Strait of Gibraltar is gigantic.
It's only about 20 or so miles across, so you theoretically
Prohibitively expensive
we
to make a
have
bridge
made-
that big.
we have made longer
Additionally-
dams. Go ahead.
Additionally, you're going to have a bridge or dam or whatever that can withstand the force of the tides of the Atlantic
The
Ocean.
whole ass ocean.
Over 20 miles of bridge. This is not concrete. This would be solid steel.
And
There are
there,
very few materials that hold up to that amount of force.
even if they did make it on land, out of concrete, there's not enough concrete that has ever been produced in the world or ever can be produced in the world to make this dam,
Yeah.
as calculated by some engineering consulting firm. I don't know who
Even people
was
forget
commissioned.
that a large amount of CO2 emissions come from the creation of concrete.
Yeah, so by how much would you raise the ocean just by building this dam? And
Yeah.
to make matters worse, let's say you do build this dam, and then let's say that sea level raises by about, I don't know, 10, 15 feet. All it
What
takes
then?
is one IRA operative gone rogue with a nuke to like make a biblical style flood onto like
Yeah.
all of
Well,
these
also-
cities.
That's a good point. By making a dam that protects, what is that, 10 or 15 different European and African nations, you're basically just painting a giant target on the entire
Oh yeah.
area of the world.
Oh yeah, this would be cataclysmic if anything happened to it. It's not a good idea. I love this concept, which was building a city on it. There's
What?
buildings, there's a pool.
Wha-
Nice. I
Is
like
that
that.
what that is?
Yeah, I didn't realize that until now. I just put this in as because it was a concept. And
Oh
then
my
the other one
God.
was they wanted to, as Greenland melts, because, as you go further inland, the ice sheet's way thicker, is to build dams on various channels and outlets, because this is what Greenland looks like with no ice, to kind of hold the water in. So again, you're making a big target somewhere in Greenland, and two, how are you going to get the thousands of cubic miles of concrete out to the middle of the ocean to build such a thing?
Yeah,
So, yeah, what a lot of people forget is that the ocean is massive.
it's
Like,
incredibly,
it's we
unfathomably large.
yeah, like our hubris of humanity is such that, oh, it's just another element that we can control. We can control, um, I don't know, the forest, the natural world, and to a lesser extent, the weather, but the ocean is just so big, it's kind of beyond our current capacity to control. Which
Yeah,
brings me to my last impractical idea, which is nuclear inland lakes. So there's this period of time. It's a very magical time. It's probably between 1940 and 1955, in which nuclear bombs were developed as a concept and in practice, but no one really knew how bad they were,
yeah.
like how dangerous the fallout and the radiation was. So in that magic 15 years, there's some really funny ideas. And this is one of them. Basically just nuking massive holes in the middle of places that no one wants to be to backfill sea level rise. Um, there's a variety of reasons why that wouldn't work.
I
Yeah, so one is you're gonna change the weather by basically having a giant lake wherever you're putting it. Any aquifers underneath will be useless. And two, there's very few places that are inland that are close enough to the ocean and low-lying to be practical because things generally tend to slope up. In the US, the only thing that really comes to mind is Death Valley, and that's about 300 miles inland.
that's okay. Here's another thing. Nukes. Tell me what a nuke stands for.
Nuclear
Nuclear
bomb.
weapon, nuclear
Tsar
armed.
Bomba.
Keyword nuclear.
Uh-huh.
Look at how big the radius is on that bottom left image.
This is
That's
just a
about that's
concept.
about from Oklahoma to South Dakota.
As much as I love the idea of nuking Denver, which is clearly what they're doing here,
Anything in that hemisphere is going to be in the fallout zone.
and it's like
You are killing everything. These
the
aren't like the baby 1940s nukes. These are powerful bombs.
and I mean like a nuke, it doesn't really make that big of a crater.
It doesn't make a crater as much as it does just like turn everything into a shadow on a wall.
Yeah, like it'll kind of just it'll kind of just move the Earth about like a mile away. It's not really gonna do much. But if we could do something, I think this would be the perfect place to put it.
Yeah.
We would get rid of Saudi Arabia, and we would B make all of that oil underneath useless.
I think one of the biggest reasons that I support green energy and one of the biggest things that I think the Democratic Party and other left-leaning parties could use to get
Yeah, that's how you appeal to
right-leaning
conservatives.
parties on board for green energy is the fact that it would reduce our dependency on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that is the number one argument of how you get conservatives on board with anything eco-friendly. It's, do you want to keep buying our oil elsewhere? Because it's like
If you buy oil, the terrorists win.
the US has a decent amount of oil within its borders. Like between the LA Basin, Texas, there's a lot. Like if the US cut way back on flying, on driving, on everything else, there's more than enough oil within the US to support our own needs, which I think is what we need. Oil's not going anywhere. We're going to need it for to way less extent for centuries. So the most we can figure out how to get it ourselves and not need to rely on
Yeah.
super uh kind of weird and maybe genociding countries, the better.
And additionally, you can get energy from anywhere. Wind,
That's right.
solar, geothermal, hydro, like whatever, doesn't matter. You can only really get plastic from one source, and that's from hydrocarbons.
Yeah. So natural gas, oil.
Yeah.
I have more reasons why the nuking Denver won't work. The first is that Denver is a mile off the ground, so you need to pump ocean water a mile off the ground. And
Oh,
then
we love our pumps.
secondly, so the loading of the water will depress the lithosphere, which will raise sea level nearby. And because of self-gravitation, you would add mass onto the continents and you would drag water towards the shoreline,
Ugh.
make the continents more massive and gravitate the water towards the continent. And then to decrease the level of the ocean by 1 feet, you would need to have 3 feet of water on all the continents. So the ocean's big.
The ocean is incredibly big. 352 quintillion gallons of water to be exact.
That's a I could probably drink that at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
If it was like,
Let's see.
given how at 3 a.m. I can literally drink anything, I think I can do it.
Yeah. It's what is that? 321
Thimbles.
million cubic miles.
That one's a little harder to quantify.
Yeah, the
I've
gallons estimate is a lot easier.
I've never seen a cubic mile.
Hmm, they're
I've
pretty
seen a
big.
gallon. I could visualize it. Okay, about a mile tall. That's, to the clouds, bit higher. I don't know.
Quite big.
So moving cities has kind of been dismissed as super impractical. But what
Yeah.
about floating them? This would just be building a completely new city. This seems like the ultimate, like, you really want to have oceanfront property. Like, you don't want to go inland. You want you want oceanfront property. So their plan is to, from what I can tell here, is to build a floating city that over time gets smaller.
Hmm.
Huh.
Really just a very big cope for wanting oceanfront property that will just not exist.
Yeah, and then like obviously most of the low-lying areas, like what we saw in San Francisco, this area is some of the poorest neighborhoods in the city. So sea level rise is
Yeah.
going to disproportionately affect um, lower income neighborhoods because the higher elevation is generally the hotter real estate, and the lower elevation is generally cheaper. So lower income housing, as with most things, is going to be disproportionately affected.
Yeah.
So let's get into some specific regions, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
So the American West Coast, it's relatively high off the ground in most places. It's bedrock is, maybe 10, 20 feet down, and then it's pretty straight lines. It's not like the East Coast where there's a ton of barrier islands, marshy land. So if you did want to do seawalls, this would be the place to do it.
Yeah.
So interestingly, this isn't a political map. This is a map of whether an area is increasing or decreasing in elevation due to continental drift and stuff. So interestingly, the Los Angeles basin is rising at a level kind of on par with sea level rise.
Interesting.
I would have expected them to be sinking, but they're kind of at the convergence of two tectonic plates such that they'll keep going up. It's good for them, I guess. A lot of the Bay Area is kind of sinking a little bit, and as you're looking here, um, much of San Francisco is pretty high off the ground. It's just if an area is low, it's really, really low. So like the highest areas are like 300 feet above sea level, and the lowest areas are like a few feet above sea level. So we kind of discussed the delta here, where the state gets most of its water, and it is either at or below sea level. So that's a problem. Saltwater intrusion is already a big problem, not only because of sea level rise, but because if you're drawing water from the delta to drink, you're pulling in salt water. So the plan is to build like tidal walls which slow down tides, but really the solution is just to not overdraw the delta and obviously to stop the sea level from rising.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So then the East Coast, they don't have the benefit of either having cities that are physically rising or having that like nice rocky flat coast. It is barrier islands, it's marshy, it's wet, and it can be used to your advantage. So a lot of things that East Coast cities are either considering or are doing are mangroves, which are super important for blocking or depressing storm surges, and oyster beds, which do the same thing. And then what New York City is concerning is kind of building a natural levee, like making a gently sloping hill.
Interesting.
Because, with sea level rise and stuff like Hurricane Sandy that introduced just nuts flooding onto the city, it's better to have that sort of natural protection, even if it's not physically raising the city off the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know, anything you want to say about the East Coast? Any more jabs we want to give them?
I think we've got enough jobs, especially in the last episode.
Well, speaking of jabs, they're kind of lacking on that front.
Yeah.
They're not getting boosters. Um, so then we have whatever the Netherlands calls a solution.
Building something?
Building just off the wall stuff. So as sea level rise becomes a problem, how the Netherlands chose to cope with it um, is kind of a model for the rest of the world and kind of a look into the future as what other countries are going to be doing to try to combat this. So after like a bunch of storms in the early, I don't even know when they did that, but a bunch of storms kind of like killed a lot of people. And about a third of the country in the most populated parts, so Amsterdam's about here, and the cities are here, are below sea level. So
Yeah.
this is all a dam right here.
Needless to say, infrastructure problem.
Yeah, they're kind of building themselves out of a problem because they can export oil.
Although, one very, very small silver lining is, like you said, they're serving as a model. They've had to deal with ocean rise to this level for a lot longer of a time than the rest of the world has even had to think about it.
Yeah, and they're at a point now where they're continuously updating their defenses every 5 years to account for a 10,000 year storm.
Yeah.
Because these defenses, whether it be this one or any of the other ones I couldn't cover, they cannot fail. Everyone in Amsterdam's life depends on it. It's stuff like in London where you have that big. I know Tom Scott did a video on it recently that I watched, but it was that thing they have on the river Thames. It's like a retractable seawall. I don't quite
Oh
understand it,
yeah, I've seen that
but
before.
like it can't fail. It's when this infrastructure like actually can't fail, otherwise a whole city gets flooded. It's something you need to invest a lot of money into. So whether it be kind of dredging the ocean floor at about like 100 yards off coast to increase the volume of beaches, or these really, really long dams just to protect from storm surges, the Netherlands kind of builds their way out of the problem to serve as a model to the rest of the world because sea level rise is universal. Most countries have a coastal city, so international cooperation is really going to be the only way out of this.
Yep. If only we signed, if only we really agreed to any international climate deal.
Yeah, if only the Kyoto Accords were passed in the 90s.
Yeah. It seems like, additionally, this isn't just one administration or another. it's unilateral across the US.
Hmm.
Like there were still what is it? There were still plans that were being set in place for climate accord in Paris, and Obama decided not to, you know, even send a representative to them from
Yeah,
the United States.
it's
And then Trump just doesn't sign it
no, yeah,
and
not at all.
backs out. You know, someone needs to care.
Hmm.
That's the whole moral. Someone needs to care.
Yeah, and people are. I mean, you can go back and say, well, this administration didn't do it, and that's because we're in that mess. But the sooner we get to the we're in this mess, like now what do we do? There's no going
Yeah.
back. We can't go back and retroactively sign something or enact this policy or prevent that president from doing whatever. We're here and it's now, and we're not getting out of it unless we do something.
Hmm.
So, one last one. This one's going to be short. The Pearl River Delta.
Oh.
That's this thing. It's about 30, 40 million people live in there, and it's super subject to sea level rise. This is in China, by the way. So there's Hong Kong, there's Macau, there's Shenzhen, there's Guangdong, there's a bunch of other cities there. But this is probably one of the most heavily urbanized river deltas in the world, and it's super subject to flooding. And their only hope of whether it be a typhoon come in from the South China Sea and destroy everything is to build some type of defense along the estuary. And that would require cooperation between Macau, Hong Kong, and the PRC.
Yeah.
That will
Why do I
not,
feel like that's not going to happen?
it won't. That's because it won't. Three extremely contentious and competitive countries that are bound to have some type of international incident at any time having a hundreds of billions of dollar agreement and international cooperation project will not happen, at least in today's climate. It won't.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story and all of these solutions that people are trying to do to combat sea level rise now that it's here is why is it happening? Um, you can build
Very good
yourself
point.
out of the problem, and for every effect, there's a root cause. Find and address the root cause rather than try to fix the effect, as there is no end to the latter. There's no end to updating all of your levees and dikes for the 1,000 or 10,000 year storm. There's no end to pumping rainwater out of your basin of a city. There's no end to international cooperation to try to get things across countries built. The end is stopping sea level rise as it's happening. And that's the obvious end.
Yeah.
But seeing as
It,
we're already locked into a meter at most of sea level rise by the end of the century, it's what can we do now? Because it's only going to get worse if we don't.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, on that downer of an ending,
Eh,
the
cannot be
Nile
winners.
River and its many Niles.
Yep.
It's a long river. It's in Egypt, and we're going to be discussing the thing that's in every world history textbook with the white Egyptians. That's how was it used, its historical significance, and why it's a super big struggle of topic of international tension today.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, happy post-holiday.
Yep. Happy late season's greetings to everyone.
Oh, there's one more. There was one more lady at the school board meeting.
Oh, really?
Okay, so she was saying for some backstory here, our high school, there's some people at our high school who are trying to start a chapter of Turning Point USA,
Oh, yeah.
and they keep getting denied because our school doesn't allow partisan clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep saying that whether it be like the LGBT club, any of the multicultural or Hispanic or Asian or
Oh,
whatever,
and the Peaceable Schools Initiative Club
or
that
whatever of those,
solely exists to prevent school shootings is
yeah,
supposedly politically
and
aligned.
that all of those organizations are politically aligned. So they've been on a lot of tirades. They got like Charlie Kirk to like tweet at her school, which caused a
Oh.
bunch of. I think that's what caused Mr. C to start showing up to the school board meetings because like he doesn't live in the district, and like no, he doesn't. If as far as I know, he doesn't have any children. So I'm so confused. But anyway, this lady was like, I know a girl at the school who was brought to tears because she was not allowed to say a certain holiday phrase. And then she said, "So Merry Christmas to everyone here."
Republicans on their way to make people saying happy holidays into something that is called the Christmas War, apparently.
I saw this meme and it was like clearly cropped gay smut. And it was like conservative Catholics comforting each other after hearing happy holidays. And it's like, how long can Fox try to pump significance into this? I say happy holidays because it's, the US is now a religiously plural country. Before it was a religiously plural country, but no one was gonna admit it. But now that's kind of the case. More than half, like, religiously ambiguous people outnumber evangelicals for the first time in this country's history. Like, it's kind of assumed now that whoever you're talking to might not celebrate Christmas. And it's not even,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with a culture war. It has everything to do with kind of respecting other people's beliefs, which is, that's
it.
really what the cultural wars are all about. It's the inability of conservatives to accept people's beliefs and how they choose to conduct themselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's all I have. Remember, don't get yourself killed, please. COVID won't go away unless you make it go away. Only
Yep.
you can prevent COVID fires. All right. Cool.
The point of contention is how they act. Where you draw the line will set you free. The debate is over.